Good morning, Year 3. Today we're looking at new language to do with obtuse and acute angles, and also how we can use language and properties of a shape to describe it. Okay, so we've got the in focus question, how we label our angles, what an acute and obtuse angle are, and then it's your turn. So the in focus question. It says, how can we describe the shape? So obviously shapes have names. We've got triangle, rectangle, circle, all sorts. So it's not just about the name of the shape, but also how we can describe the shape. So I want you to have a think about how many sides the shape has. Are all the angles the same? Do any of the lines meet? Okay, because we've seen and we've listened to language this week to do with perpendicular lines, so those lines that meet and make a right angle, parallel lines. So have a little think about those when you're describing the shape. Pause the video and have a go. So if we're to have a little look, here's our shape again, and there are 4 angles. And not only that, we've labelled our angles with letters. So just like before when we labelled our lines with letters, we can also label our angles with letters. So then we know what angles we're talking about. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, and they've all got their own letter. Okay, now another question, because 2 of them hopefully we recognise. Hopefully we recognise angles A and B, and we'll go through those in a moment. But another question, because you might think that D and C are a little bit peculiar. So are angles C and D acute or obtuse? Are they smaller than a right angle, or are they larger than a right angle? So we're going to have a little look at that as well. So the big question is, what is an obtuse and acute angle? So when we talk about an obtuse angle, these are bigger than a right angle, okay? And we know this because if we were to do our lines, our vertical line and our horizontal line, and try and make a right angle, we can actually see that the angle itself, the dotted line, is bigger than a right angle, isn't it? Because the 2 lines that were there before are more apart than our right angle lines, our 2 perpendicular ones. So we can see that an obtuse angle is bigger than a right angle. So we then know that an acute angle are smaller than a right angle. And I always remember this by thinking of something cute. It's usually small and little and cute. So that's how I always remember that an acute angle is smaller than a right angle. And again, we can see this like so. So if I was to make my vertical and horizontal line, I can see that normally I'd be able to make a right angle. But instead, my angle is smaller than the right angle. So therefore, that is acute. So remember these because we'll be using them in a moment. An obtuse is bigger, acute is smaller. So let's take a look at the angles again. And we've got the horizontal line running across, and we've got our vertical line going up. So hopefully you'll know that A and B are right angles because we've got our 2 perpendicular lines, and when they meet, they make a right angle. So that's perfect. We know these ones. However, D, this is something new. Now, if we look carefully, we can see it is bigger than a right angle. So that must mean it is an obtuse angle because it's bigger. If we look at C, okay, it's acute because it's smaller. And I know this because if I was to put my line, my vertical line in, I can see that the line that was already there is smaller in angle than the orange line. So if I wanted to put a right angle in, I couldn't. So always have a go that if you think it's obtuse or acute, try and get that line in so you can see whether you could make a right angle or not, whether it's smaller or bigger, and this can help. So we now know that D is obtuse, it's bigger than a right angle, and that C is acute, it's smaller. So now it's your turn. Go to Google Classroom, have a look at your activities and have a go.